Ashley at Bookishrealm. I'm back with another video. As you can see here, I am filming early in the morning, so if you hear the birds outside, you know, enjoy the ambiance. As I always say, enjoy the ambiance. So today, as you can see from the title of this video, I wanted to do something a little different, and I wanted to talk about mental health and what it has to do with my reading and what's the correlation for my reading and how it specifically impacts me. I'm not going to necessarily go into any like hardcore specifics because it's some information that I'm not necessarily willing to share, but for the most part I'm going to be as transparent as possible. But this is something that I wanted to talk about. I know that I've done like a mental health video before, but I talked about that in terms of booktube and really taking care of myself and knowing that like whenever I feel like I'm having something going on and you know, the book community starts affecting my mental health, it may be time for me to kind of like take a step back and kind of reevaluate like where I'm going with my channel, what expectations I'm placing on myself that are not realistic. So I guess I should kind of start somewhere at like the beginning and talk a little bit about the fact that I have dealt with mental health issues my entire life. I have been formally diagnosed with some stuff probably about maybe like 7-8 years ago now, and I am not surprised because I think there is some genetic things going on here in terms of like family members who also have some mental health problems that they have struggled with their entire life. But just kind of being open, I'm one of the first in the family to actually get formally diagnosed. So I'm not going to go into detail about like what my diagnoses are, but one of them that I struggle with and I'm very open with is that I do have major depressive disorder, and it is something that has gotten better with time with like therapy and stuff. I have been able to better use like coping skills and stuff to kind of navigate what I'm dealing with. Now, what's interesting is at the time of filming this video, I am actually going through what I consider to be an MDD relapse, and it's been a struggle for me, and it kind of motivated me to make this video because I think that while a lot of what I do, I try to, you know, keep certain aspects of my life private, I wanted to be transparent with this because it is a thing that is closely related to my reading, and I wanted to explain that to people because I know that I just put up a video. I don't know when that video went up, but I just put up a video where I talk about what or how I read so much every year. And I know that I've been getting a lot of questions about that, particularly like this year, more so than any other year, because as of I think shooting this video, I've read almost 100 books in 2 months. And people are asking me like, how is that possible? And for once, it's not just books that are like picture books and short books. Like I've also read over 20,000 pages so far this year. So I'm clocking in over 10,000 pages a month. So I'm reading. There's a lot of reading that's going on. And I think that the short answer is, for a lot of people, I've explained, like, especially in that video, I talked about the fact that, you know, like, I'm constantly reading. I'm reading all the time. That's how I end up reading so much. But the other side of that discussion also is that I cope with reading. So when I first started dealing with my mental health problems, I had to learn what's called coping skills. I'm not a licensed therapist, so I'm not going to try to explain like details of like different methods that people use, but I've seen a couple of people, including like a cognitive therapist, who has taught me how to think about things differently and how to kind of rework my brain or kind of realign my thought process when I start hitting a low. And doing that, I know that there are certain activities that I need to engage in order to pull myself out from a low. So for me, when I get particularly low, what ends up happening is, and everybody's different, which is why I'm kind of explaining this, because there is no one size fits all. There are common symptoms, I believe, that are exhibited through a lot of people who have major depressive disorder, but I think the ending results can change from person to person. So like for me, I really start to kind of detach, meaning that I'm not as social with people anymore. I don't really get that active like with people in my personal life, in real life. Like I won't really communicate that much. I usually just stop doing anything. I get frustrated more easily. I am super emotional until the point where like I literally just want to do nothing. So for me, it's kind of like a build up to that point where I'm like, never mind, I don't want to do anything anymore. I'm not interested in anything at this point. So I've been taught different things to stop me from hitting that extreme low point. And so one of those things that I have latched onto is reading. And reading for me is definitely a safe space. It kind of takes me out of my element and puts me into another situation where I'm not so hyper focused on what's going on in my personal life, and I'm not focused on the way that my MDD is making me feel within that moment. Now, of course, there are a couple factors in here too that make it kind of a dangerous thing as well. So reading is a coping skill, but reading is also a good indication of when I'm not dealing with stuff. So I've had a lot happen within the past 2 months of this year, like a whole lot. And it's a lot of stuff that I'm not willing to share, that I'm not willing to kind of be open about because it is so extremely personal. But 2022 has been a interesting year, and in a lot of ways for me, kind of a testing year where like I am being tested to my limits, and it has been difficult on some days. So I have, unfortunately, to some degree, not necessarily like 100%, I have defaulted to reading to escape, but also I'm not coping. So it's interesting because I've used reading as a coping skill, but it also becomes a crutch and becomes dangerous because then I don't deal with what I need to be dealing with. And a good indication of me not coping is how much I've been reading. I know that I have been using it to cope, but I've also been using it as an escape to not confront and not deal with what's going on in my life, which also is not good because what ends up happening is that I'm inevitably delaying whatever I have to deal with. So it's kind of like this twofold thing where I think I've always showcased reading as like my safe space, my coping skill, like my reason why I end up like reading so much and that I'm just constantly reading. But also it has kind of like this darker side to it where it's like I read to not have to deal. And I know when I'm in a good spot because like I hit that kind of middle ground of my reading, and I know, and I don't know what that number is. I can't really put a number on it because I wouldn't know what to tell you what that number is in terms of like, oh, if I'm reading like 30 books a year, then I know that I'm definitely in my sweet spot where I am, you know, this is my safe space, but I'm also not using it as a way to run away from things. I don't know that number. It's like an intuition thing. It's a feeling. I know when I've hit that sweet spot because there's just extremes. There's the extreme now where I'm like, I'm reading 50 books a month because I'm not dealing with what is going on in my real life. Like I don't want to face reality. And that's what makes me so nervous sometimes, is that like, I don't want to become so consumed into my books when I'm going through a lot that I just don't emotionally deal with what I have going on. And then there's also that extreme of like, I've hit low to the point where I don't want to read at all. So reading is a comfort for me, but it can also end up being a dangerous comfort for me. And it's all about that balance. And I think that right now, because I've had so much going on, I am happy that I have found my solace in my books and that I have been able to navigate what I've been dealing with through my books to some degree. But I can also recognize that I don't want to face a couple of things, and that I don't want to think about a couple of things, and I need to emotionally handle those things, and I'm not emotionally handling those things because I just don't want to deal with the fallout. So I turn to my books as a source of reconciling with whatever is going on in my life. And what's so interesting about like this whole conversation is that at the end of the day, you know, it hasn't always been like this. I haven't always been in a situation where reading has been a coping mechanism. I used to use other coping mechanisms which were not good, but I think that for me, and in also you have to think about the fact that like MDD is not the only thing that I deal with at the end of the day. MDD is just one of the things that I have to deal with. So I have to be careful about how everything kind of works together and how it impacts me. So I have to be very careful about what type of coping mechanisms I'm kind of introducing into my life, which it becomes kind of like an obsessive thing sometimes. So these past 2 months, I've pretty much been obsessively reading. I will read a book at work, and then, you know, I don't even want to give myself any time for my mind to wander. And I'm so, or have been so afraid of what will happen if I kind of let my mind get off track of where it should be, that I literally will read a book at work or read a book at home and I don't even take a break, which is where the 50 book thing comes in. Like, I will listen to an audiobook, knock it out, immediately start another one, not even take a break and be like, oh, I just listen to some music, da 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 da. Like, no. If I'm not in a meeting or if I'm not having to talk to someone on my job, my earbuds are in and I'm listening to a book so that I can just navigate. And I know people will probably ask me, like, you know, why don't you listen to music? And the reason why is that I feel like even with music puts me too in touch with my emotions. And I know that that's probably the strangest thing to say, but it makes me think about stuff too much. And I think that when I'm reading a book and I'm thinking about someone else's, like a character's problems, I don't have to worry about my problems. I don't have to think about my problems. And that's me just having to, or wanting to be able to avoid the inevitable. And it's not always healthy. It is a not dangerous coping mechanism, which I know that a couple of people have told me that in the past, like, well, you know, like, there are worse things that you could really be engaging in at this point, because I have engaged in worse things. But still, to a certain degree, I think it's also important to recognize too that, like, it also is not extremely healthy to not deal with what you have going on. And so for me now, it's all about finding that balance. But I'm not going to sit here and say that books are like a detriment to my mental health. I think that they're good for me. For me personally, when it comes to my mental health struggles, they're good for me. They are a way to alleviate a lot of feelings that I may have, but I also have to watch how much of that I'm engaging in. Am I doing it in a healthy way? That means that I am, you know, just trying to level myself out, or am I doing it in a way where I'm like, I am not dealing with anything in the real world right now? And I think we all get to a point like that where we're just like, I just can't deal with the real world. And I think that that's okay, but I think it's how much you do it. And I know for me, the past 2 months, it's been straight fire. Like, I'm not dealing with anything. And I didn't realize how bad I was going into an MDD relapse until like maybe a few days ago, where I just was like, oh my gosh, like, this is a pretty low point. Like, I'm not really handling things well right now. And books have kind of helped me not go too far down under, which I do appreciate. So this is not anything that I, you know, like, I planned on doing. I just was thinking about when I was filming that vlog, I mean, you can't tell. And a lot of times with me too, when I slide into anything regarding my mental health struggles, you can't really tell unless you know me. Then you'll see some kind of like behavioral patterns will change. But for the most part, how I present myself, like in the book community on social media, you can't really tell that anything has changed or anything's been going on. And in that vlog, like, I am really struggling in that vlog, but you can't tell and you can't see. I'm struggling right now, you can't tell and you can't really see. I think that I was answering a question, but not being completely transparent in that vlog either, about the fact that people were asking me, you know, how are you reading so many books in a year, and you work full-time, and you're mom, and you do this. And it definitely also has to do with avoidance. I think that having all of those things, like being a mom, working full-time, doing booktube, and I have other stuff going on that, you know, like y'all don't see or not privy to because you're not a part of my personal life, that really makes things a lot more difficult than what I like to make it appear to be. And so I sometimes get super overwhelmed and I get stressed out and a lot of things happen and I sometimes slip. But this is probably like the worst episode that I've had in a very, very long time. But I just wanted to kind of be transparent about that because, like I said, I have been transparent about my mental health before, but I also want people to realize that, like, for me personally, I know that the amount I read can also be very indicative of what I'm not doing and what I'm not handling, and it can also be unhealthy. And it's not always like that. Like, sometimes I can be reading a lot just because I'm reading a lot, but I can tell you that this year, reading 100 books in 2 months is not normal for me, and I don't know if that pace will keep up. I just think that I started off this year in a pretty intense way, and those 100 books are like the result of me just not kind of dealing with whatever I have going on in the background. So I just wanted to share that. I think that it is an interesting discussion to have about how reading impacts our mental health, whether for the good, the bad, or the ugly. And I just kind of wanted to share it. If you feel comfortable sharing about, like, you know, how does reading help you in terms of your mental health, or whether it's an indicator of where you are with your mental health, I would love to see comments. Just if you feel comfortable, remember, like, don't share anything that you don't feel comfortable sharing. I don't share anything that I don't feel comfortable sharing. So if there's things you're like, oh, you're open about this because I feel comfortable at this point to share it. But if you don't feel comfortable sharing, like, you know, don't feel obligated to. But I would love to hear how y'all kind of, you know, if you use reading as a way to kind of navigate your mental health, or if it's a good, like, scale of indication of where you are with your mental health. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'm so sorry, y'all, it's the birds in the background. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and I will be back with another video soon. And also, I always forget this part now, if you're looking to follow me on social media, all the links will be down in the description box below for you to check out.